Syndicate's reaction to Arden's calculated aggression was swift, if predictable. Zephyrion, the architect of faith, had not endured millennia of power by yielding easily. His countermeasures were less about direct geomantic assault and more about reasserting control over the narrative, attempting to quell the burgeoning chaos he now attributed solely to Arden's interference. His faction flooded the digital sphere with carefully crafted counter-narratives, blaming the financial instability on rogue AI, foreign adversaries, or even sunspot activity. They amplified voices of reassurance, attempting to soothe the widespread fear with promises of swift recovery and renewed stability. From his cliffside overlook, Arden watched these efforts with a detached, almost clinical interest. He saw the key of Zephyrion's faith-based weaving, a vast, complex system of collective belief, attempting to reestablish order, but the threads were brittle. Alyssin's gambit had already frayed the edges, and Arden's own strikes against financial networks had created deep, unseen fissures. The more Zephyrion tried to reinforce the illusion, the more transparent its underlying fragility became to Arden's discerning eye. They are attempting to restabilize the collective psyche, Ilara observed, her voice low as the geomantic display showed waves of calming blue ki being projected over the agitated red and purple. But the fear persists. The financial markets remain volatile despite their best efforts to inject confidence. Confidence is a fragile construct when the very ground beneath one's feet begins to tremble. Arden, the Prime Immortal, stated, his gaze piercing the distant mist. He felt the subtle resistance of the planet itself to Zephyrion's reweaving, a deep resonant hum that underscored the futility of their efforts. The Earth, in its slow, ancient awakening, was rejecting the old lies. Then, a new, more aggressive key signature appeared on the display, a sharp, cutting edge of energy emanating from Kaelen, the weaver of boundaries. Unlike Zephyron's attempts at subtle control, Kaelen favored direct, forceful intervention. His response was visceral, aimed at isolating the perceived sources of the chaos. He began to sever digital connections, not just individual accounts, but entire networks, creating localized blackouts in areas where the truth-seeker rhetoric was gaining too much traction. His goal was to physically segment the disk, to reestablish the psychological and informational barriers that the internet had so effectively eroded. Kaelen is initiating localized network purges, Ilara announced, her voice tinged with alarm. Massive data loss reported in several regions. Public outcry is extreme. They're calling it an active digital war. Arden watched, his expression unreadable. Kaelen's methods were crude, a blunt instrument against a nuanced problem. While it might temporarily suppress the spread of information, it would only fuel the very paranoia and distrust Alyssin sought to cultivate. The humans, cut off from their digital lifelines, would seek answers in the void, and the void would whisper the forbidden truths. Amidst Kaelen's aggressive purges, Arden detected another, far more subtle activity. It was Isolde's signature, weaving through the chaos like a ghost. She was not directly countering Kaelen, rather, she was creating intricate, almost invisible bypasses around his severed networks. These weren't overt acts of defiance, but rather elegant, almost artistic reroutings of data, ensuring that critical information and perhaps, more importantly, Alyssin's resonance could still flow, albeit through more circuitous routes. Arden focused his awareness on Isolde's hidden pathways. He saw the subtle encryption of ki, the clever misdirection of energy signatures that allowed her to operate beneath the notice of Kaelen's brute force. She was a master of the digital weave, a true artisan of the modern ki landscape. Her actions confirmed his earlier suspicion. Isolde was not merely an unwitting pawn. She was a conscious, if silent, participant in the unraveling. Her own subtle rebellion against the Syndicate's rigid control. Her motives remained shrouded, but her actions spoke volumes. She was a potential ally or a dangerous wild card. The deep-hanging energy in the sanctuary posed with the escalating conflict, a low, unsettling hum that resonated with the planet's own growing disquiet. The air itself seemed to thicken, charged with the immense, unseen forces at play. Arden, the Prime Immortal, felt the weight of millennia of responsibility, the burden of a lie he had carefully constructed, and now, just as carefully, began to dismantle. He knew the Syndicate would not yield easily. Their next move would be more direct, more desperate. They would seek to neutralize him, the Prime Immortal, the ancient force they now perceived as the ultimate threat to their dwindling authority. He could feel their collective gaze turning toward his hidden sanctuary, their ancient power beginning to coalesce, preparing for a confrontation that would shake the very foundations of the disk. The gathering storm was upon them, and Arden stood ready, the architect